So Netivot Shalom, Parashat Tezave, right? Tezave. So one of the things here is talking about the Mizbeach, Mekater Ktoret, the altar. Right? You see the Mizbeach, Mekater Ktoret, right? It will have the essence, the Semanimanim, the whatever, the herbs that they're going to burn on it, right? And it will be the smoke, the essence, right? So Venatata Oto, so you put that altar לפני הפרוכת, אשר על ארון העדות, right? For it will be in front of the parochet, the covers, which is on the ark, right? Before the cover, okay, Kodesh Kodashim Ula Hashem. So it says in this parsha there are many notes, many questions. The Ramban asks why this parsha is here is here in this the end of Parashat Tezave. After the clothing of the Kohen and the sacrifices and everything, because it seems to be the proper location was supposed to be in the last week Parsha, in Truma, when it's mentioning all the vessels, utensils, the table, the shulchan, the menorah, right? Everything that were inside the Oel Moed, including the altar. So why it's here? And it also makes sense. You have the vessel that's inside, and then you have the outside, the wood, and the fabric, and the mizbeach chitzon. When you really actually put the korbanot, the sacrifices, right? And then you have in this parsha the clothing and the sacrifices, right? So also the Ktoret should be in last week parsha, together with the menorah and the shulchan. And also need another explanation when it says in the parasha, Viktir alav Aaron ktoret samim baboker, when Aaron was putting the ktoret, the herbs, in the morning, when he was making or preparing the candles, right? Bativot anirot yaktirena. Then he will have the ktoret, the essence, when he's preparing the candles, and then before the sunset. בעלות ארון את הנרות בין הארבעים, also קטורת לפני השם, right? So it sounds that the קטורת, the essence, have a connection with the avoda of the menorah in the morning and in the evening, because it says together with the menorah. And also when it says, ונתת אותו לפני הפרוכת, you put it before the covering on the aron, on the ark, in front of it, right? אשר על העדות, עדות is like testimonial. And Rashi explained, לפני הפרוכת מכוון כנגד האור בחוץ. So it's like in front of the parochet, but it's aimed for the ark, which is in the outside. So we need to understand also why that Mizbeach HaKtoret, the altar of the essence, needs to be aimed to the Aron HaKodesh. And also the Lashon Lifnei, in front or before the parochet. But it says in the menorah, michutz laparochet, like outside the parochet. Why here it's in front of. And also when it said, it's emphasized in the Ktoret, the Lashon Kodesh Kodashim, like the holiness of the holy. Kodesh Kodashim Ula Hashem. And also, right, in the Parashat Kitisa, it says, Kodesh Kodashim Telachem. And we should say, according to what it says in the book, Bekli Yakar, to explain these two Mizbachot, the two altar that we have. So one altar is in the outside, Mizbach HaChitzon, the external one, and one is the inner one, inside the oil. And he says, one is for the body and one is for the soul, right? We can guess. The one for outside is for the one that is outside is for the body. Mm-hmm. Is the Mizbach HaOlah, which is to come for the atonement, right? The atonement on the sins that are related to the body. That when a person sin, chas v'chalila, then he needs to bring a behema, right? Behema, it's something behemi, something, something very thick, megusham, like a cow or a big sheep, a ram, because that's similar to the physical body that sin. So he bring a behema. לקורבן, נפש תחת נפש, הוא מתחפר לו, so he bring a nefesh, right, which is living soul, to the atonement of his soul. But also there is the blemish of the soul. Right? שבכל חטא שאדם חוטא מגיע פגם הנשמה, because we learned many times that we have 613 mitzvot for each part of the body. Each time you sanctify, you're doing one mitzvah, you're sanctifying the body. If somebody chas v'chila is doing a sin, So all the parts that were relevant to that sin are damages. That's the body. And then you have a spiritual parts. So he said the neshama cannot get an atonement in a behema which doesn't have a ruach and neshama, right? So the behema have a nefesh, which is a very lower spiritual. We have nefesh as well. That's our lower level of a spiritual thing. It's 5 parts, right? So it's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. We have it in the body, and then we have chaya and yechida, which is like the extra soul or the one that is connected to Hashem, to the upper world. For example, if somebody is getting angry, he's like disconnecting himself from these 2 parts, the chaya and yechida. He left only with the nefesh, with the behema soul, right? So he said, so when you bring a behema for an atonement, for a sin, then it's good for the body, but not good for the soul, right? Ruach and neshama. And therefore we have the mizbeach. Mordechai, so we're just talking, the topic is the mizbeach ktoret, right? The essence, which is inside the oil, and the mizbeach hachitzon for the korbanot was outside. So the outside is for the sins of the body. And now we're going to understand what's the mizbeach ktoret, the essence that Aaron used to prepare the nerot and then burn the herbs to make the good smell. That was in the morning and before sunset. So now we said, so mizbeach mektor ktoret, the one with the ktoret, the essence, it's a spiritual thing. So the reach nichoach, like the good smell, that was for the neshama. In that mizbeach, the altar of the ktoret was mechaper, have an atonement for the blemish in the neshama, the chelek eloka mimal, the one that were disconnected from Hashem because of the sin. And said the kol klei mishkan, all the utensils and the vessels of the Bet HaMikdash, the purpose was to purify Klal Israel. And the same way that in the Kodesh HaKodashim we have the kruvim, right, on the ark, and the Torah Kdosha, everything was there. And in the Eichal, we have the table that is purifying the body, right? Like today we have a shulchan that we're eating the food that purifying the body if we're doing correctly. To elevate the table of a person, right? In the context that they are shulchan ifnei Hashem, this is the table in front of Hashem. So all the inyanei chulin, all the secular thing would be Kodesh Kodashim. And the menorah was to have a spiritual light, divine light, right, for the Klal Israel. And the mizbeach haktoret, the altar with the ktoret, was to order to purify the soul, the neshama, with nothing to do, like not related to the body. And that's why it says in the mizbeach haktoret, Kodesh Kodashim. ויש לומר עוד בזה, we can say furthermore, according to what we explain in other place, that there are sins that blemish mainly the body, and there are sins that the blemish is actually in the soul, right? So the types of sins that mainly blemish the body, and there are other sins that blemishing the soul more. And there are mamash averot, like real criminal activity. When the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is overcome on a person and is do forbidding things, and then he blemish everything, like hell break loose. And he said, and there are blemishes in the neshama that are not real sins, in the inyanei kadesh atzmecha b'mutar lecha, that the things that are permissible to us, and somebody is overdoing, he can blemish his soul with that. He said, dvarim she'atorah lo asatam for things that the Torah didn't specifically say that are forbidden, but they're like against the purpose of being kadoshim. Ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. So this is like the gray area or thing that we're not told specifically, but if we think about it, then we understand that maybe it's wrong. And the Torah saying that the purpose of a Jew is to be cleaved to Hashem, right? Cleaving to Hashem, stick to Hashem. And therefore we need to be holy because Hashem is holy. And the Mizbeach HaKtoret היה מיוחד, that was his special purpose, for that purpose of being holy, to be Kedoshim, because it was coming to have an atonement on the soul from that blemish that he did against Hashem will, להתקדש במותר. So it's not a sin that he did, he just did something which was not according to Hashem's will. And our sages said, וצדיקים אמרו שזה עוד יותר גרוע מעבירה, it's even worse than a sin. שבאיסור הרי תייסרך דעתך. Because when somebody is sinning, then eventually his good inclination, his conscience, something will make him to think about it and to suffer about it and guilt feelings, right? And he understands that he did something wrong. And his heart is broken, why I did it, right? Which is not the same way in something that we're allowed to do, we can do. He doesn't feel that he transgressed Hashem's will. No, it's like, yeah, everything is good, it's permissible. That's a very tricky thing. And he said it's like some kind of a smell that dwell on a person. So, and giving a mashal, an analogy, that somebody wants to go into the king. So if he have some smell coming from his body or from clothing, he cannot really get closer to the king. Even if his body, everything is good, but I don't know, he steps on something, right? He stepped on a dog's mind, right? And then he come in and woof, what does this smell? Right? And he said, and the smell, it's something that there is no mamash, there is no something that you can really point at, right? It's something abstract. This is a smell. But still, it cannot come even to the gate of the king. So he said the same way in spiritualism. Inyane eter, the things of eter, the permissible thing, even though it's not a sin, it's a bad smell that it cannot really come to Hashem. Remember, we're learning Hasidut. So Hasidut is the extra mile. It's more than what we should do by the book. And therefore, only במזבח הקטורת נאמר, only over there, it says, קודש קודשים הוא להשם. Because in the מזבח החיצון, in the altar, the external altar, that avoda was an atonement for the sins, mamash sins, like forbidden things and people that do bad things. And over there it says, v'kidashta oto, they make it, sanctified it. Right? וקידשת אותו, והיה מזבח קודש הקודשים. But מזבח הקטורת, כל מהותו, all the essence or the being of the altar of the קטורת is קודש קודשים להשם. That they have a wonderful kedusha to bring us to a higher level. To be, as it says, ממלכת כהנים וגוי קדוש. And according to that, it's explained why this parasha in Mordechai, we asked the question, why the Torah now in this parasha, the Tezave is speaking about the Mizbeach, because it's inside the oil. It should be in last week parasha when talking about the vessels, utensils, the shulchan, the menorah. Why suddenly the Torah is speaking about that? So he says, because Mizbeach HaKtoret to sof davar shel atara. It's like the completion of the work, of the process. First, the person needs to bring a behema for the korban, for the body, for the atonement. And then eventually at the end of the process, he can bring the ktoret and to fix the neshama. And therefore, at the beginning, the Torah wrote all the klei mishkan that we're purifying us externally and internally. And then after the Mishkan, it says about the Mizbeach HaKtoret, which will bring the Kedusha on Israel to purify the inner of the inner, which is the soul. Because we have a process, we have the nefesh, which is related to the body. And that's why the Torah was emphasizing that. So now another question was, why is it so related, the Ktoret, the essence that Aaron was doing Netivot Nerot baboker, right? Netivot Nerot yaktirena, when he was preparing the candles, then he will bring the Ktoret. And also when he was lighting the candles in Ben Arbaim in the evening, then he will have the Ktoret. Because the menorah was made for a spiritual light for the Klal Israel, right? The divine light. And for a tahara, right? Tzarich Yehudi she'eh lo elakuto, right? And to getting a tahara to be tahor, we need the divine light. So how can we get that? So that's the preparation for the menorah for the Ktoret. And it was related. And that's why we found that these two things were the special work in the morning and a special work in the evening. In B'menorah, ktiv baboker b'ativot hanirot, when he was preparing. And then during the evening, right before the evening, ba'alot aron et hanirot ben arbaim, then he was lighting the candle. And so the ktoret, right, aktarat ktoret, to burn the essence, was in the morning and the evening, which it says, right, ze leshonam al korban tamid. Also, it's the same thing for the korban that was constantly, right, in the morning and in the evening, that the korban tamid of shachar, of dawn, of the morning, was mechaper on the averot of the night, the sin of the night. And the tamid shel ben arbaim, the sacrifice of the before the sunset, was mechaper on what happened during the day. And that was purifying us. And that was the madrega of the menorah that was spreading the light for us. The same thing with the ktoret. So it's all a part of a process. We have the chas v'chalila sins, then you need to bring a korban. And the sins blemishing the neshama, then we need to use the internal altar with the ktoret. And then to purify us, again, you need to have the menorah with the light and the ktoret. And everything was part of a process. It was sanctifying us. And that's why the Torah was actually talking about the Mizbeach HaKtoret toward the end of the parasha, because that's the end of the process. Mizdat Hashem, we should all be Kedoshim, and we should be all pure, Teorim, and we have Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mera b'yamenu. Amen.